The house hadn't changed. Same faded shutters, same cracked concrete path snaking up to the porch. Even the leaves seemed to fall in the exact same pattern across the lawn, like time had taken a break here. I stood at the gate for a moment too long, the weight of her absence heavier than I'd expected. No car in the driveway. No soft hum of jazz leaking through the windows like when she was alive. Just silence. Thick, aware of itself. She always said, "Never go in there, no matter what." I thought it was a joke. I used to laugh it off, thinking she was just being dramatic about her precious little guest house. But now, standing alone in front of it, with her gone and autumn settling into the corners of the street like an old memory, it felt different, like the rule was never meant to be funny, like it had always been a warning. The neighbors saw me pull in. I caught them through lace curtains and slight glances over newspapers. Some nodded, polite, rehearsed. Others whispered behind their windows. The woman across the street, the one with the wind chimes, froze as I stepped out of the car. She turned her face away too fast. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about grief. There was something else here, something my sister carried alone, and took with her. I hadn't been back here in years. But the moment I crossed the threshold, every detail snapped into place. The scent of lemon polish, the creak of the floorboard 3 steps in, the way the hallway light flickered like it always did. Everything looked untouched, preserved, as if she knew I'd be coming back. As if she wanted me to see it like this, exactly this. I was 14 when she bought this place. She just turned 30, fresh from some job she wouldn't talk about. Said she needed quiet and space. But it wasn't until she built the guest house out back that things started getting weird. She obsessed over it, poured her savings, time, everything into that structure. And then she locked it. I remember asking her once, just once, why I couldn't go in. She snapped, not yelled, snapped. Her jaw clenched, voice low but final. "It's mine. Don't ever touch it." I'd never heard her speak like that. It was the only time she ever made me feel like an outsider. She had locks on that place that didn't match. One looked like it belonged on a bank vault. Curtains so thick no light ever escaped. Cameras, not pointed out but in. It wasn't just overkill, it was deliberate. She trusted the whole damn neighborhood more than me. And I carried that, quietly. Every holiday, every visit, every ignored question. It piled up. She'd laugh it off or change the subject. But I knew. There was something behind that red door she didn't want me to see. And I hated how much that stung. The funeral was short. Cold. A handful of people, mostly strangers, offering empty words. No slideshow, no stories. Just a pine box, some wind, and a hole in the ground. Not a single person from our past, not even the ones who used to call her light of the room. I guess that light went out quietly, and nobody noticed. I stayed behind after everyone left, not because I had to, because I couldn't move. That's when the old woman approached me. She wore a scarf that looked older than me, and her voice sounded like gravel soaked in secrets. "Your sister held many secrets, dear," she said, her hand brushing mine. I wanted to ask who she was, but before I could, she was gone, disappearing into the rows of headstones. Later, as I slipped my coat on, I found a letter tucked into the pocket. Unmarked. No return address. Just one sentence written in tight, slanted handwriting. "Don't open the red door." By nightfall, I was back in the main house. Alone. Her scent still clung to the air, a mix of lavender and something older, like cedar and thyme. I wandered, touching the walls, running my fingers across picture frames. It was too clean, too staged, like a showroom version of a life that never existed. There were no signs of living, just signs of leaving. One wall caught my eye. A shrine. That's what it felt like. Dozens of photos, carefully arranged, but not one familiar face. Strangers, men, women, children, all smiling, frozen in time. Not a single shot of us, not even from our childhood, as if I'd been erased. In the den, I found tapes, VHS, labeled with codes, A3, BL4, 109X. Not dates, not names, just confusion. I didn't watch them. Not yet. I wasn't ready for whatever version of her those tapes held. That night, lying in her bed, I heard it. A low humming. Faint, steady, impossible to place. I followed it through the hallway, down the stairs to the back window. It was coming from the guest house. A sound like breathing, but not human. Morning came slow. I didn't sleep. I walked out back, coffee forgotten in my hand, and stood in front of the guest house. Tried the key. It didn't fit, not even close. A thick chain looped through the handles, bolted from the inside. Windows painted over, edges sealed tight. I stepped closer and noticed the mail slot, taped shut from the inside with duct tape layered like armor. Then I remembered. Years ago, I saw a man come out of there. I'd asked her who he was. She said, "Nobody." Then smiled, the kind of smile that means shut up or lose her for good. I checked the mailbox. Just one envelope. No stamp. Address Tamara Lynn. My sister's name was Margaret. The last time we spoke, her voice was thin, distant. If anything happens to me, don't go looking for things that don't belong to you. I'd brushed it off. Another one of her episodes. Drama, dramatics, the usual. But now, that letter at the funeral made sense. Don't open the red door. It wasn't paranoia, it was protection. She didn't want me to find something, or someone. The wind picked up suddenly, slamming the guest house gate shut behind me. I didn't flinch. I just stood there, staring at the door that had separated us all these years, feeling the kind of silence that doesn't ask for company, only answers. I needed to breathe. The air inside the house was too quiet, too curated. I slipped on a sweater, grabbed the old keyring out of habit, and stepped out into the chilled afternoon air. The sidewalk cracked under my boots, the wind tugged gently at the fallen leaves, and everything felt like it was whispering about me without saying a word. The street hadn't changed much, but it felt like a film set, staged, fake, and too quiet. I walked slowly, eyes scanning homes I barely remembered from childhood visits. The mailboxes looked freshly painted, the lawns all trimmed within the same inch. No one was outside, but I felt eyes. Somewhere. I turned my head just in time to see the old woman across the street. Same one from the funeral. Her face was pressed against the second-floor window, eyes locked on mine. She didn't move, just stared. And then, without flinching, she stepped back and vanished behind the curtain. I kept walking, but my chest tightened with each step. A jogger passed me, young, probably in his late 20s, earbuds in, oblivious. As he passed, a piece of paper flew out from his pocket. I called after him, but he didn't hear. I bent down and picked it up. It was a weathered flyer, missing person, dated 6 years ago. The name read, Rachel Cortez. I almost dropped it. The face. It wasn't my sister, not exactly. But it was close. Too close. The shape of the eyes. The tilt of the mouth. I felt cold. Back at the house, I stared at the flyer like it might rearrange itself into something less disturbing. My sister never mentioned a Rachel. But that face, that damn face, I tried to dismiss it. Told myself people look alike all the time. But a thread had started to unravel. And it was pulling at something I hadn't prepared to find. A knock pulled me out of my spiral. I opened the door to see the old woman from across the street, holding a tray covered in foil. "Lemon bars," she said softly, not meeting my eyes. She liked these, I figured. Well, thank you, I said, stepping back. Come in? She shook her head fast. No, I don't step into that house, haven't for years. I raised a brow, confused. You knew my sister? She hesitated, then offered a tired smile. We were neighbors, once. Something about the way she said it didn't feel casual, like the sentence had weight she didn't want to carry anymore. She was kind, I said, though it came out unsure. Maybe, in ways most wouldn't understand. I glanced down at the lemon bars. When I looked up again, her eyes were on the hallway behind me, searching for something. You should really leave that house alone, she said quietly, pulling something from her sweater. Sometimes the deadlocked doors for a reason. Before I could respond, she pressed a photo into my hand, turned, and left without another word. I looked down. It was my sister. Younger, smiling, but not the kind she showed me. Next to her stood a man I didn't recognize. Tall, strong jawline. He wasn't smiling. Something about him made the back of my neck tense. On the back, in faded ink, were 5 words. Summer, 2006. Don't trust him. I sat down hard in the foyer. My fingers gripped the edges of the photo like it might fly away. Was it fear? Anger? Betrayal? I couldn't tell. What scared me more was not knowing which one hurt worse. Later that evening, I decided to clean the basement. Something to do, to keep my mind off the growing knot in my gut. I carried a flashlight and dusted my way through decades of boxes until something metal caught my eye. A trunk, heavy, bolted shut, tucked under linens like someone meant to hide it but didn't trust the attic. I found a hammer and pried it open. Inside, photos, dozens, all of them old, all of them showing my sister and the same man from the picture the old woman gave me, always together, never smiling, none labeled. None in any of the family albums I'd seen. Then I found the one that changed everything. She was wearing sunglasses, indoors. A bruise peeked out from under the frame, curling along her cheekbone. She looked away from the camera, not embarrassed. Ashamed. Someone tried to bury this. Someone wanted me to believe she was just private. Just odd. Just controlling. If someone tried to erase this, what else was I not supposed to find? I climbed back up, heart pounding, barely noticing the dust on my clothes. Night fell slowly, like a curtain pulled with intent. I found myself in front of the guest house again, this time with different eyes. I crouched to examine the door. There were scratches at the bottom, tiny ones, clustered like frantic clawing. I looked up. A small camera sat above the doorframe, still mounted, still blinking. I ran back into the main house, following a memory, one I hadn't trusted until now. The attic. I climbed up with a flashlight and found it, a black box, half buried in the rafters. Warm to the touch, someone had been watching, last night, the movement in the window. I didn't imagine it. My hands trembled as I climbed down. I sat on the floor of the hallway, trying to catch up to my own mind. I'd spent years explaining away her coldness. She was hurt. She was private. She was grieving. But what if she wasn't any of those things? What if I'd been blind because it was easier than seeing? I stood, looked at the photo again. The bruises, the man, the silence in her eyes. If I left, all of this would disappear again. Just another story untold. Dead women don't talk, honey, the neighbor had whispered. But their walls do. By 10 p.m., I was outside again, this time with gloves and a crowbar. The woman was in her window, watching. She didn't wave. Neither did I. I stood at the red door, pulled my phone from my jacket, and pressed record. If anything happens to me, I said, someone needs to know what's inside this place. I wedged the crowbar into the chain lock and leaned in with my weight. The metal groaned, twisted, then snapped. The wind rushed past me, the door creaked open, and the smell that hit me wasn't decay, it was perfume. Familiar, expensive, fresh. The door creaked wider as I pushed it with my shoulder. I stepped inside, careful not to let it slam shut behind me. The air wasn't stale like I expected. It was warm and scented. Something floral and expensive, like those boutique stores in Portland where you only go if you're buying a gift you want to impress someone with. My boots landed on hardwood, smooth, clean, polished. No dust, no spiderwebs. A candle flickered in the corner, nearly spent. The whole place was modern. Sleek furniture, soft lighting, throws and cushions that looked like they belonged in a designer catalog. It wasn't my sister's style, not even close. She was all chipped mugs, old flannel, and books stacked knee-high. This space, this house, Felt lived in, not abandoned. I spotted a half-empty coffee cup on the side table, faint lipstick on the rim. Groceries sat on the kitchen counter. Produce, fresh bread, a carton of oat milk. Someone had been here. Recently. I stood there in silence, heart pounding, trying to absorb what I was seeing. I felt like an intruder, but at the same time, like this place owed me something. A truth, maybe. Something she never gave me while she was alive. I walked slowly through the main room, letting my fingers drift across the edges of the counter, the back of a leather chair. Nothing about it screamed guest house. It wasn't extra space. This was a second life. The bedroom door was open. Inside, the bed was made, not staged, but freshly used. A man's watch lay on the dresser, sizable, heavy. Next to it, one of my sister's scarves, still holding her scent. I opened drawers, jeans, both men's and women's, shirts I'd never seen before, in colors she'd never wear. Cologne, toothpaste, an extra toothbrush. This wasn't just hers. Someone lived here with her. The closet was deeper than it looked. I found a bin filled with photos. Polaroids, prints, glossy snapshots of her at events I'd never been invited to. Garden parties, a yacht, even one in what looked like a courthouse. And always, a different name scribbled in the corners. Marilyn. There it was again. The name no one would explain. Under a stack of folded clothes, I found documents, bank statements in different names, 2 passports, 1 foreign, IDs with different hairstyles, different birth dates, all hers, or at least all her face. My knees buckled. I sat down on the bed, clutching the edges of one ID. She was running from something, or someone, maybe both. I thought I'd lost my sister to death. But the truth was, she left me long before that, to become someone else. A door caught my eye at the far side of the hallway, solid, white, keypad on the side, like something out of a movie. I tried her birthday, nothing. Then, almost without thinking, I typed mine. 4 digits. It clicked. Inside was a small room, no windows. Soundproofed walls, a desk with a locked safe, files, journals, shelves filled with binders, and a whiteboard covered in notes, names, addresses, flight numbers, some crossed out. One name jumped out at me, my own. I couldn't move. My name in her handwriting underlined twice. What the hell was going on? I pulled the closest journal off the desk and dropped to the floor. The writing wasn't hers. Not really. Not how I remembered it. And it talked about me in the third person, like I was a stranger. He found me again. The house isn't safe. If I disappear, she must not open the red door. Too late. Another page listed a storage locker and a series of steps, instructions I didn't understand yet. The writing got frantic toward the end. Was she scared of him? Or was she working with him? Maybe she wasn't the victim. Maybe she was the reason. One sentence caught my breath mid-chest. The truth will make you free, but it might destroy her first. Was I the her? I heard something outside. A car door. I moved like my bones were electric. Peered through the slats in the blind. An SUV, dark, sat idle at the end of the driveway. My heart kicked into gear. I grabbed the journal, shoved it under my coat, flipped off the light in the hidden room, then the main lamp. Someone else knew about this place. Someone was coming back for what she left behind. I ducked behind the wall, clutching the crowbar still resting near the door. My mind raced with questions, but one shouted over the rest. I wasn't supposed to see any of this. Not alive. Call the police and tell them what? That my dead sister had aliases and a hidden life. They'd turn it on me. They always do. I moved to the hallway, creeping toward the door, and then I heard it. The hinges groaned. Light spilled in. A man's silhouette stretched across the wood floor. I froze. He didn't look angry. He looked sorry. "You shouldn't be here," he said. Dusk had settled before I realized how dark the guest house had grown. When I stepped back inside, the shadows wrapped around me like a second skin. Every corner I'd skimmed earlier creaked underfoot. Drafts whispered along the walls. The room felt alive, shifting just beyond my sight. My sister's warning echoed. "Don't open the red door." That phrase had tasted like fear in my mouth. Now it hammered. I moved toward the windows, peering out. Nothing. just night. Then I slipped outside, toward the garden behind the guest house, where the hush felt heavier, as though nature itself was holding its breath. In the garden I found footprints, fresh, deliberate, leading away from where a small statue once stood. That pedestal, carved with marlin, was empty. Someone had moved it under cover of night. My heart sank. I followed the trail of prints through moist earth, past hedges glinting in porch light, to the side of the main house. Through a window, I saw the statue under lamplight in the foyer. I slipped around the side and entered the main house through a side door. There it was, in the center of the entry hall, bathed in light. The plaque read, "To Evelyn's Spirit." My name on display felt like a trap. I approached, heart thudding, and traced the letters with my fingertips. My sister's initials were carved in a corner. A ghost signature. Betrayal burned through me. Did she plan this? Did she want me to find it? Beside the statue sat a small wooden box, elegant and deliberate. My hands shook as I lifted the lid. Inside was the wedding gift I'd given years ago, except it was engraved now with Rowena's name. The engraving was clean, new. A note beneath read, "Your efforts went unnoticed. This is yours now." A lie. She had known. She had hidden it. Rage and heartbreak collided in me. I snapped photos with my phone, the flash striking the room like a spotlight on her deceit. Footsteps echoed in the hall behind me. I froze. I scrambled behind the statue, heart in my throat. A silhouette shifted. Recognition stabbed. I couldn't tell who it was at first. Ivara, the caretaker, a sibling I never expected. The voice came, low, cold. "You should not have brought light here." My glove snagged, tearing as I backed away. The box slipped from my fingers, clattering against the marble base. The figure didn't move. The hush thickened until it felt like suffocation. I pressed against the wall, ears straining, heart pounding. I retreated into a dark hallway corner and checked my photos. The statue, the box, the engraving, my name, her name, the alias. Evidence she planned something beyond my imagining. A resolve settled. I would not be quiet any longer. The house was dead quiet when I slipped back into the guest house. My pulse still thumped from hiding in the hall earlier. I shut the door softly and leaned against it, drawing a long breath. The journals, the box, the statue. My sister's life had turned into a chessboard of secrets. I stooped to pick up the photo I'd dropped, smoothing its bent corner with my thumb. Then I laid everything out on the table like evidence. It didn't feel like snooping anymore. It felt like surviving. One by one, I matched names in the journals to addresses. That's when I saw it, tucked behind a faded painting of a church. A folded slip of paper, yellowed, edges frayed. I opened it and read the words twice, 3 times. Real estate transfer, dated 2006. Buyer, Rowena G. Sage, parcel, our childhood home. My name absent, my stomach turned. She hadn't just hidden next door. She'd hidden me out of my own past. I needed context. Answers. Something beyond papers and shadows. So I left the guest house, crossed the lawn, and knocked on Mrs. Harper's door. The porch light flickered once before the door cracked open. She peered out, clutching a sweater tight around her shoulders. "I know it's late," I said. "I just need to ask you something about my sister." Her eyes darted past me to the guest house. For a moment, she seemed ready to shut the door, but then she sighed and waved me in. The living room smelled of old roses and lemon cleaner. She lowered herself into an armchair and said quietly, "I always wondered when you'd come." Mrs. Harper told me she'd seen Rowena meeting a man in the yard many nights. They never used the front door, always the side, like they were hiding. She hesitated. Once I heard her say, "I gave her everything," and she spat it back. I didn't know what she meant then. She stood, pulled a photo album from a cabinet, and flipped to a page. There, in the background of a picnic photo, were 2 figures, my sister and a masked man, entering the guest house. My heart raced as though I'd been caught myself. This wasn't just secrecy. This was a hidden life. I thanked her and left, gripping the photo she let me copy with my phone. Back through the yard, back into the main house. I pushed open a side door and crept down the hall. My eyes roamed over portraits I'd never noticed before. My sister at galas, charity events, wearing smiles that felt like lies now. I opened a hallway drawer and found an envelope sealed and heavy, addressed to me, dated years ago. I tore it open. Inside was a receipt transferring my share of our family home to Rowena. I staggered back, clutching the paper. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Someone was moving. I ducked into a small parlor and closed the door halfway, crouching behind a chair. The envelope crumpled in my hands. I thought of how I'd defended her, how I'd excused every cold shoulder, every locked door. She hadn't just pushed me aside, she'd erased me on paper. My throat tightened, but I kept silent. I could run now, take the evidence, or confront her. If I accused her tonight, no one would believe me. If I waited, the proof might vanish. I stuffed the papers into my bag and slipped back outside. The garden was darker now, a low mist curling over the stones. As I reached the guest house path, a flashlight beam swept across me. I froze, heart hammering. At the window stood Avara, staring, her voice cut through the darkness like a blade. "You'll regret digging up what was buried." I crept into the main house under cover of darkness. The envelope from the hall drawer burned in my pocket. I moved past the gallery, through the quiet halls, until I reached my sister's office door. It was partly ajar. I pushed it. The scent of old paper and polished oak hit me in the chest. I flicked on a lamp and slid into the room, hands shaking. I opened file cabinets, dozens of folders labeled in careful script. In one drawer, a folder marked Legal Transfer, 2005, bore Rowena's signature in ornate flourish. My breath caught. I opened it. Inside, a contract transferring our shared home to Rowena. Side documents, bill of sale, notarized witness lines with different handwriting, signatures that didn't match the names. Fury coiled in my chest. I whispered, "You stole my name, my home, my life." I rifled the papers, snapping photos with my phone's flash, backing up evidence as I moved. Then I spotted a locked drawer tucked beneath the desk. I pried it open. Inside lay flat files, architectural blueprints. My pulse thundered. On top was the original drawing signed E. Sage. Beneath it, a newer copy with the signature replaced by Rowena's. My mind raced. I heard her voice boasting she redid the whole place, but never admitting she'd taken credit for what I designed. I closed the drawer, heart pounding, and stepped into the hallway. Voices echoed. I froze, slipped into a closet, and peered through the crack. Ivara and Tam stood in low conversation. I heard Tam say, "We need to delete her files before she leaks everything." Ivara added, "The red file, destroy it." My stomach churned. I weighed bursting out or staying hidden. If I acted now, I risked confrontation. If I fled, evidence might vanish, but hesitation would only let them strike first. I held my breath, listening until the voices drifted away. I pushed open the closet door and stepped into the hallway. Ivara looked startled. "You shouldn't be here," she hissed. Tam shuffled behind her. I swallowed the tremor in my throat and said firmly, "Stop running from this. I know what's going on." They both recoiled slightly. Tam's hand trembled at his side. I demanded, "Give me the original files, the ones you're hiding." Ivara's face tightened. She slammed the nearest door, hard. "You don't understand what you're messing with," she spat and disappeared down a corridor. I darted after her, but she'd vanished. The hallway felt longer, emptier. I returned to the office and slammed the door. I pushed a chair against it. In the dim light, I sank into the swivel chair and laid the forged contract and blueprints before me. My hands trembled. Even with proof, exposing it would rip the family apart. Parts of my sister I still loved would be lost forever. I wondered if justice was worth the cost. Then I steadied myself, pulled out my phone, and started a voice memo. "If I disappear, here is my blueprint, my design, my story." A sound froze me. A soft rustle against the window pane. I turned, no one there, but the curtains shifted, someone watching. I hadn't even caught my breath from the last storm when I stepped into the gallery corridor behind the living room. I'd never noticed the door before. It was tucked behind a cabinet, cracked open just enough to draw me in. What I found stopped me cold. The walls were filled. Dozens of plaques, framed articles, photographs, each one carefully arranged. And every single one had her name on it. Rowena Drake. Design awards, charity recognitions, community honors. But I didn't need to read every plaque to recognize what was staring back at me. Those were my sketches, my installations. One of them, a light sculpture I built by hand in my early 30s, now captioned, "Designed by Rowena Drake, inspired by Evelyn." Inspired, like I was some vague wind that blew through her life. I stepped closer to a piece, a sunburst wall design I crafted the summer after our father died. My fingerprints were still there in the solder marks, but now there was dust freshly moved, like someone had wiped it just yesterday. They never valued me, but they sure kept using me. There was a framed magazine cover with Rowena smiling in front of our childhood home. The quote read, "She rebuilt this from ashes." I laughed under my breath. Not her ashes, mine. I pulled out my phone and opened the video file. Graham's face filled the screen, tired eyes, that same stutter he had when he was nervous. He looked off camera, then started. "If you're watching this, it means I couldn't stop it," he said. "I found the documents, the signatures. They weren't hers. Evelyn, they weren't yours either. Rowena forged both, and when I brought it up, she told me I'd regret siding with you." My knees went weak. I sat on the floor, the screen shaking in my hand. She said, "Family secrets stay buried." I thought she meant pain. She meant power. "I'm sorry I didn't protect you." He ended the recording with a whisper. "Don't let her win." Tears fell before I noticed. Not grief, not yet. Relief, maybe. I thought he left because he gave up on me. But he stayed. For this. For truth. I marched into the living room. Ivara and Agatha were inside, mid-conversation, startled as I burst through. I held up my phone and the forged contract. "You want to explain this?" I said, my voice flat. Ivara tried to look calm. "You don't understand what... Why take everything I built and sell it off like garage clutter with your names on the price tags?" I snapped. Agatha's hands shook. "We didn't have a choice," she mumbled. Rowena, she made us choose." "Lies," Ivara barked. "No," Agatha sobbed. "I wanted to stop it, Evelyn. But everything was already in her name. The contracts, the deeds. We thought if we kept quiet, it would all just hold together." I looked around the room. Frames sat stacked against the walls. Some were broken. They'd been trying to destroy the evidence. "You're all in on it," I said. "Not one of you thought to ask why my name was gone. You just swept it under your rug of awards." The room erupted. Voices over voices, accusations like flying glass. I stepped back, chest tight. I couldn't hear my own thoughts. I staggered out, pushed the guest house door open, and collapsed in the foyer chair. Silence. Finally. Was I wrong? I whispered to no one. Did I imagine it all? Then I replayed Graham's voice in my head, his tone, his fear, his loyalty. It steadied me. No, I wasn't imagining a damn thing. I wiped my face. I stood. And I knew exactly what I had to do. Go public. Blow it wide open. No more whispers. No more buried blueprints. No more asking permission to be remembered. I stepped back toward the house. The living room was dim, but I heard something. A faint chuckle. The music box, the one that played at night when we were girls, was turning somewhere in the shadows. Then I saw her. In the doorway, leaning like she never left. Rowena. She smiled. You've made this very personal. I sat in the library, the old clock thudding against the walls like a second heart. On the table lay everything I had collected. Contracts with forged signatures, blueprints stamped with my initials but crossed out in her handwriting, Graham's video, the gift box with its mocking plaque. I made duplicates on 3 drives, hid one behind a loose brick in the fireplace, sent another to an encrypted email. This wasn't about memories anymore. This was about proof. I sent a message to Sarah and to Agatha. Family meeting. Upstairs, now. My hands didn't tremble when I typed it, but my stomach knotted like a rope pulling tighter. In my head, I rehearsed the lines, how I would tell them, how I would finally force Rowena to speak the truth. The house itself seemed to hum under my feet, full of old whispers. This is my last chance to reclaim what's mine, I murmured, almost to the walls. Agatha entered first. She didn't look at the table, she looked at me. She could see from my face I wasn't bluffing. I began reading aloud, steady, almost cold. Dates, numbers, her signature on the transfer papers. These were false, I said. You signed them. Her breath hitched. She reached for the back of a chair but stayed standing. Evelyn, she threatened me. She said she'd ruin you if I didn't. I thought I was protecting you. Her voice cracked, but she pushed through it. I loved you both. I chose the lesser evil. Hearing her say it out loud, I felt my chest tighten. She had been part of it, yes, but under Rowena's thumb. The betrayal burned, but behind it was something darker. A picture of a family caught and bent under one person's control. I saw my mother not as an accomplice, but as a captive. My fight wasn't just against Rowena. It was against the machine she had built out of our blood. The door swung open again. Sarah stepped inside, her shoulders squared, a flash drive clutched in her fist. I'm done, she said. I went through my mother's files, old emails, messages. She used me too. I won't play along anymore. Before either of us could speak, she crossed the room, pulled the projector's cord, and the gallery lighting died. Blue light spilled across the far wall, blueprints with my signature, photographs of my work, Graham's confession video playing in grainy clarity. Graham's voice filled the silence. Rowena forged both signatures. Sarah's chin trembled, but her voice stayed steady. My mother didn't build this house. My aunt did. The words landed like a stone dropped in water. The room went still. Even Agatha stopped breathing. And then Rowena appeared in the doorway. She strode in, hair loose, face pale, but eyes flashing. Turn that off, she snapped. Sarah didn't move. I stepped forward, feeling my heartbeat slow. I gave you loyalty, I said quietly, but every word struck like a hammer. You repaid me with erasure. She laughed once, a sharp sound. You think you know what I've done? You have no idea. She slammed the door behind her. A porcelain lamp toppled and smashed. She lunged for the drives, but Sarah stepped between us, her arm out. No more, she said. Rowena's figure loomed beneath the portraits she'd hung of herself. The lights flickered. The air felt electric. I wasn't afraid anymore. I reached for the overhead projector and sent everything onto the far wall. My name on the original plan, the contract with its false signatures, Graham's confession, line by line. All of it in light. Rowena lunged again. I blocked her, steadying my stance. This ends tonight, I whispered, just for her. In the scuffle, one of the portrait lights crashed to the floor, revealing a hidden canvas behind her. A younger me, painted by her hand, long before the lies began. Rowena's breath caught, her face drained of color. I stepped closer. You erased me, I said. Now I'll show the world. Her scream tore through the house, long and raw. It wasn't fear. It was the sound of a crumbling empire. The house was still again, but not the kind of still that weighs on your chest. This quiet felt earned, settled, honest. A few days had passed since that night, since everything came down, since Rowena's mask finally cracked. She was gone now, removed from the estate, pending court hearings. There hadn't been shouting or handcuffs, just silence and a letter from her lawyer. Sarah, to her credit, acted fast, filed the transfer, sent in every shred of video and digital proof. She backed me, no hesitation. I sat across from my lawyer that morning, sipping bitter coffee that had gone cold long before we started talking. His voice moved through the details, but my mind kept floating back to the garden. To my sister. People in town had begun to stop me again, only this time not with pity or gossip, but with respect. Some apologized, some simply nodded, and I accepted it all, not because I needed it, but because I was finally strong enough to face what I'd once run from. Justice is rarely clean, I said aloud while signing the last set of documents, but it's the only path to healing. Later that day, I found myself outside the door I had once feared to open, the room my sister had kept locked from the world. I hadn't returned since that first awful discovery. But now I didn't come with anger. I came with questions, and maybe a little reverence. I stepped in slowly. Dust still clung to the edges of the shelves, though the air felt different now, calmer. I scanned the room again, this time with patient eyes. And there, tucked behind the bookshelf, a small wooden slot I hadn't noticed before. A hidden drawer. Inside it, a sealed envelope, my name on the front, in her handwriting. I held it for a while, fingers trembling more than I expected. A part of me didn't want to know. But I owed it to her, and to myself. I opened it. Her words spilled out like rain after a drought. If you're reading this, I'm already gone. But I knew you'd find the truth. She wrote about the house, how she built it for both of us, how she caved to Rowena's pressure near the end, and how much she hated herself for it. The letter was full of guilt, of love, of sorrow and quiet strength. I was weak when I should have protected you, she said, but I knew you'd be strong enough. That's why I chose you to find it. I didn't cry out of grief. I cried because, for the first time, I felt seen, understood. Loved not for what I endured, but for what I'd overcome. The following weeks brought change I hadn't imagined. I decided to keep the house open, not as a monument to pain, but as a space for something better. We called it The Hearth, a local art and design studio for young women trying to find their way. I hung her portrait in the front foyer, right under a simple plaque. In memory of those who built in silence. I visited Agatha weekly. She was in assisted care now. Our conversations were quiet, but there was peace between us. No more blame, no more weight, just two women sharing time. And I started writing again. This time, for me, for all of it. The story was titled, Behind the Locked Door. Not a memoir, not exactly, just the truth, told plain. I walked out to the garden that morning. The sun caught the edge of the roses she used to tend. Everything was blooming again. New, whole. I knelt beside the soil, pressed a final seed into the earth, not to remember the pain, but to grow something new. We carry the ghosts we choose. I choose the one who believed in me. I turned the soil and smiled, not because of what was buried, but because of what would bloom.